Alright, this tutorial is going to cover a few things. Edit Mesh is going to cover extruding and beveling, as well as scaling in units, and a little bit of box modeling. What I want you to do is start with bringing a box into our scene. Okay, I'm going to change this to a gray. And I'm going to change the length and the height. I'm going to go 100 by 100, and the height we're going to go is let's just go, we're going to go short, we're going to go 2. And what these units are, basically, they're generic units, and whatever you start them with is what they're going to be. So if you want to say inches, if you want to say feet, that's what they're going to be throughout the entire scene. If I did 100 feet by 2 feet, then this stays the same throughout. If you want to be more specific and actually see that, you go ahead and go to Customize Units Setup, and you could go ahead and change to US Standard and how specific you want to get. Usually you would just go ½ inch unless you're doing more architectural. Then you would probably go to 16 to 32. You could use metric meters, obviously kilometers. But what we're going to do is just use generic units for now. Lighting units, we're not going to worry about now. Alright, so what I'm going to pretend these are our feet, so 100 feet by 100 feet by 2 feet. So we've got a pretty big box here. As far as segments go, go 9 and 9. Height segments we'll leave at 1. And you don't see much change when I change segments. If you haven't figured it out, by pressing F4, it brings up edged faces, and you can see all the segments that you have just created. Also, if you click and hold between the top and bottom arrows, it turns into a spinner. So if I left click and hold, now I can drag up and down, increase or decrease my number of segments or any item in the entire program. By right clicking, it brings me back to where I started. So I drag down, right click, brings me back to 9. It's a quick shortcut. 9, 9, and 1 is kind of what I want to go with here. What I'm going to do now is change this box. I'm going to add an Edit Mesh to it. Okay, Edit Mesh gives me more options than the generic box does. You can see box gives me just segments and height, width, length. Edit Mesh gives me much more to play with. More specifically, more what I can select. Alright, so what we're going to do is select the polygons. Again, vertices will give us points at each edge face and where they connect. Facing will give us basically half of our objects. These will give us the individual lines or faces, and finally polygons will give us full segments, and the element will give us the entire thing. So we're going to stay with polygons, and what we're going to do is select just the outside of this box. And how I'm going to do that is by clicking and dragging my top view. Holding the control button, you can see my mouse changes to a plus sign. And now I have the outline of the top of my box selected. You can see from my other views I also have the side of my box selected. I don't want that, so what I'm going to do is press Alt and hold it. You can see my mouse changes to a minus sign. And what I can do now is deselect the side of my box. Now, one thing to pay attention to, and this is a mistake that you will make and won't realize until a little later, is right now my ignore back facing is on. And I'm sorry, it's off. So what that means is that this does not ignore the back side of my object. So if I rotated my box down, everything is unchecked. But by me alt-tabbing this, it deselected it. So what's going to happen is I go to the top view, I select the outside. You can see all the sides are selected as well as the bottom. And that's because ignore back facing is on. So if I select this quarter of my box, this half of my box, you can see it goes right through to the bottom. And most of the time I don't want to do that. So if I turn ignore back facing on, I select that same thing, the box is unselected. The bottom is unselected. It still shows the side here. That's because I can see that side from this view. However, this side is unselected. So ignore backfacing is something to play with and really get a knack for. So what I'm going to do is select the outside again, and I'm going to deselect this the sides. Now this is the situation where I turn this off and select because I want to do all the sides at once. Otherwise I would have to rotate and deselect each side. So now I have just the top corners of my box selected. I'm going to maximize this again. Alright, what I'm going to do is turn this box into some sort of a fortress or a castle. And how I do that is by raising these polygons. Now I can go to select and move and just drag these up on the z-axis, but what happens is the faces that it's touching are also going up, and this is going to cause a bit of a aesthetic problem. I don't want that. What I want is these to go straight up, and how I do that is go into the extrude button. You can see my mouse cursor change to the extrude icon as I hover over the polygons. So when I click and hold, now you can see that my boxes go straight up. Now if, for instance, I had one object selected and extruded, it would only extrude that one segment. Haha. Alright. And I gotta go in and select these again. Okay, not a big deal. Alright, so what I'm going to do is extrude these up. I'm going to extrude them up probably about 20 units, 20 feet. It's pretty high. You can see that there's no segments in between the 0 and 20 feet. Okay, if I extruded these up 10 feet and another 10 feet, I have the same height, but now I have an additional segment in between. This is good for if I were going to add a door, for instance. I'm going to scale up a segment, and now I have a larger door. I can cut this door, and people can get in and out, but don't worry about that right now. So I do want you to go ahead and go 10 feet up, and then another 10 feet up, so that we can add a door a little bit later. Okay, so hopefully you're at this point here, keeping this top part selected. And I'm going to play around with bevel now. So instead of extruding up, I'm going to switch to the bevel modifier, and that's right here. By going bevel, it's a two-click process. Click and hold will go to the extrude. When I let go, now I can bevel in or I can bevel out to make these polygons bigger or smaller depending on how I want to play with them. So what I'm going to do is bring these up a little bit, about 2 feet, and I'm going to go out about 2 feet. Okay. Just a little bit. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to extrude. But a time saver, instead of having to go back to extrude here, is by clicking and going up about 3 feet, and then not moving my mouse again, and clicking. And that just bypasses the bevel part of the bevel. It's just the extruding, just a time saver. The next step I'm going to do is go up a little bit more, about a foot. I'm going to go in. And now you can do this as much as you want or as little as you want, but you can see I'm adding detail to my battlements. Alright, the next thing I'm going to do is drag down. So instead of going up, we're going to drag down a little bit, about a foot, and go in a little. Okay. And the last thing I'm going to do is drag deep down. We're going to go about 4.5 feet, and we'll go in a little bit, about a foot, and click. So you saw none of my measurements are very exact, and they could be, and I could take my time and make them exact, but there was no need to in this situation. So now we have a nice walkway for people to be at. Okay. If you want to go ahead and go a little further, you can select individual pieces and make them stick out. People can hide behind, shoot arrows if you want. Okay, and what I did in that situation was I clicked on individual polygons, and with the select and move modifier, I just drew. I'm sorry. With my bevel modifier, I extruded them, and I made them a little smaller. Now at this point, they extrude out at a 0 degree angle. I click on select and move, and now I'm able to move those out or in depending on how I want. And you can easily see this become animated as well. You don't have to do this, but that didn't work how I wanted to. That's fine. I am going to extrude these out, and I'm going to bring them in a bit. And now we've got two walls where people can hide behind. The last thing we're going to do is make a door, and we're going to put the door right underneath some of those battlements, and it's going to be this polygon here. You can select any polygon you put on the side, and just a simple way of doing it is to click on the select and uniform scale, and I can scale this however I want, either sideways or up down or two at a time or all of them at a time. I'm going to make mine a little bit wider, and I'm going to bring it down a little bit closer to the ground, right about there. And what I'm going to do is delete this face. And what happens is you can see through my box. Now this is going to pose problems later on with normals unless I actually put a ground in this. So another way of getting around that is to just simply extrude it in and put a picture of the inside here with some bars perhaps. I'm going to but you know what, I'm just going to delete it for now. That's fine. I'm going to take that face, I'm going to delete it. But you will see as I render this, see there's no floor here, it's black, it goes right through. The normals are empty. This is basically a hollow castle. So that's going to pose a problem unless I put some dirt plane in there, which I can do fairly simple by just going here, and now I should have a plane. There we go. A little stick right here, and now we've got interior dirt. If I had a light source, there would be shadows. This would be a little darker. The last thing I'm going to do is show you how to actually take this scale into account with people. So if you go to the Create tab and you scroll over to Systems, there's an object called Biped. And it's just a little bit more advanced, but it's something you can play with early on. And what a biped is, by clicking and holding, is a person, and I can bring him into this world. So if I click and hold, I bring him to about 6 feet. You can see there's a height bar right here. I can move him anywhere. And what I'm going to do is move him onto my battlements. You can see he is very small, so this 100-foot castle is much bigger than you may have thought. And if you can see, you can't even see his head. So I probably made mine a little too small. I would probably put some boxes here that they would be able to stand on, or a taller ledge for them to stand on. The last thing I'll do is, as you guys have done already, shift copy. I'm going to make about 15 of these. Not too many. That's alright. And I'll just go ahead and delete these that are sticking out. So now I have an army of biped men ready to fight.